Justice League International number 6, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Marco Castiello. We left off last issue with pretty much the end of the arc. Paraxis was sent packing and all the giant robots were seemingly stopped. This issue is the epilogue issue, setting up things to come in the future. It's 4:30 a.m. in DC, and Booster Gold's meeting up with Batman to take care of some threat that Batman could totally handle on his own, and Booster acknowledges that, but he wanted to talk. And basically the entire conversation comes down to, hey, look, regardless of what the UN thinks about your team and whether or not they're going to continue funding you, considering that the last thing wasn't exactly a total success, you're still a leader, Booster, and as such, you can do with this team what you want. Like, you don't need anybody else's permission to do that. The Justice League will be keeping an eye on you, so go ahead and lead. Meanwhile, the entire story of what they're doing in the meantime is that they get a tip that those guys from like issue 2 who set fire to the Hall of Justice, they were making a bomb, and they bust in there, and one of the guys presses the button to detonate the bomb, and he's like, oh, we're going out with a bang, and Booster has no time to defuse it, and Batman just tells him to get out, but Booster puts a force field around it and protects everybody, and the guys are arrested. So that's the framing device on that. Then we get to, meanwhile in Peru, Guy Gardner, Ice, and Rocket Red, I believe his name is, are currently dismantling and destroying those giant robots that came out of the ground, making sure they can't do anything else again. And Guy's just bad-mouthing Booster the entire time. He's like, oh, man, he was a real leader. He'd be here right now. But no, he's leaving us for cleanup duty, and he gets to go off and do whatever with Batman. And both Ice and Rocket Red are like, hey, he was, more so Ice, he was on the other 3 robot cleanups. He's been with us this whole time. He's our leader. He has to do stuff sometimes. And Ice just gets into it with Guy a little bit of telling him, like, hey, just chill. Booster's doing a good job. Don't know why you hate him so much, but he's doing fine. And Guy kind of hits on Ice a little bit, and Rocket Red gets in the middle for a second, and Guy's just like, hey, how about you get out of here? So Rocket goes into the robot and tries to, like, get some tech from it, because his whole thing is just tech-based. He doesn't have any superpowers. But when he goes inside the robot, he comes across this dangling piece that, like, gives some sort of light into his eyes, is the best way I can describe it. Looks like a mind scan, brain wipe sort of deal. But Guy calls for him, and he's like, hey, I'm about to destroy that part. You're lucky I saw you go in there. What took you so long anyway? He's like, I was working, I think. So he has no memory of what that was, and I'm sure it'll come up soon. Meanwhile, in New York, outside the United Nations, General whatever in August, God, I can never remember his name. The Chinese representative is with Godiva, and Godiva's like, you've never had a hot dog? Well, please, you have to have a hot dog. And basically is trying to ingrain him in the culture, because he's always been very much an outsider, I guess. And we get a little bit of his backstory, that he was a respected military guy who encountered shape-shifting monsters, and they biologically changed him forever. So, yeah. Anyway, he then starts asking questions of Godiva, and it was basically like, you're not as extreme right now as you usually are. You usually got a whole big thing going on. And she's like, well, usually I'm not surrounded by giant world-ending events. I'm just a street-level hero. And he's like, right. Also, why do you hit on Booster so much? And she's just like, okay, well, that's a bit personal. We don't need to talk about that. But as they're talking, a truck comes ramming into, like, the seating area where everybody is, and General realizes that it's an attack. He just tears off his trench coat and shirt for seemingly no reason, and stops the van with his body. And the guy that flies out through the front window is like, I got a bomb, you'll never disarm it. And we see this giant bomb in the back of the van, and it goes off in like 20 seconds. There's no way to just completely destroy it. So then Godiva uses her hair to, like, creep inside of it, and she feels 2 wires inside, and she's like, well, one of them will disconnect the bomb. Which one? And General's like, you can do it. I believe in you. And she yanks off one of the wires, and it stops at 2 seconds, and they're so happy because she's stronger than she thinks she is. So then we go inside the UN building, and everyone's there, including the guys who like built the team, Briggs and his assistant. And Booster, Fire, and Vixen are there to like represent the team. And basically, they are immediately torn into, and they're just like, okay, so here's the deal. Your team didn't really do that well, and you kind of caused a lot of damage, so why should we keep funding you? And Booster gives this nice little speech of him being like, look, we were like only together for like 5 minutes before we were thrown into this world-ending event. We don't really know each other's powers, but with time we'll get there and we'll be able to do this stuff. Plus, that was supposed to be a rescue mission. And they're like, well, you should be able to expect the unexpected, right? And he's like, right, but we weren't a team yet. We didn't have our stuff. And he's like, well, that wouldn't be a problem for Superman's Justice League. He's like, well, you don't have Superman's Justice League because they're independent. And regardless of what you say here, we're going to be doing our own thing too. So what do you think about that? And immediately, like, one guy is like, no, are you kidding me? That's not how, never. The other guy is like, I like your spunk. Yeah, I vote yes. And of course, it's a panel of 3. So that just leaves it to the Center Chairwoman Bao, I believe her name is. And of course, the general storms in. And he's like, wait, before you vote, hear me out. Me and you share a culture, and I learned a lot about this team, and I would like to continue it, and we have potential. So please vote yes. And of course, she votes yes. So weeks later, there's this big reveal for everybody, or all the press, I should say. And Briggs is there saying like, oh, we're here to restore faith in not only the UN, but the governments of the world and the people who we tasked to defend it. And so they reveal the JLI, and they're like, haha, yeah, we're here to save the world. I hope that everybody enjoys us. And guys like, you know what? I think this could be a pretty good team. And Booster's like, are you kidding? This is the best day ever. And then they blow up. The whole stage blows up. There's just, everyone is just underneath rubble. And we see that there were some people who were watching them, and they just were like, haha, they think they've stopped us, but they barely begun. The JLI are dead and buried. And that's where the trade ends. So that's one hell of an ending for a trade. I'm not sure how much I really care for the epilogue. Like, it just feels like house cleaning. It just feels like, okay, we're just wasting one issue to just set up, okay, here's the next place we're going with it. We are officially sanctioning them as a team, despite the fact it feels like they were still officially sanctioned. I don't know. It just feels like, okay, we're just going to pad this out for the sake of the trade right now. It just needs to have a minimum of 6 issues. But it was good. It wasn't bad in any regard. So overall, I would give this one maybe I give it a 7. I think it's fine. I think it's not. It's more so just tiny little character beats. It's just looking more at the characters and their interactions and how they think about things in their own little private bubbles rather than during these big, massive events. So yeah, 7 for this one, and we'll check out the next trade next month.